The old clock tower chimed midnight, each chime echoing in the empty rooms of the city post office. Salem, a man in his 40s, stood amidst the mountains of unsorted mail, his silhouette dancing in the pale moonlight, streaming through the grimy windows. Outside, the bustling city slept, unaware of the silent drama unfolding within its concrete walls. For Salem, every night was the same. Every morning, when the first rays of dawn touched the horizon, he arrived at the post office. And every night, when the moon replaced the sun, he sorted through letters and parcels until the chimes of midnight signaled his release. For 20 years, he had walked this lonely path, a shadow moving among the shadows, unseen, unknown. One evening, as he was sorting through a pile of late arrivals, his gaze fell upon an envelope that seemed out of place. There was no stamp, no wax seal, and the address was absent, leaving only his name scrawled across the front in an unfamiliar hand. What puzzled him even more was the date written on the upper right corner. It was 5 years into the future, dated for a day that had not yet come. Intrigued and slightly unnerved, Salem carefully turned the envelope over, searching for a sender's name or any clue to its origin, but found nothing. Curiosity battling apprehension, he finally decided to open it. Inside, nestled between the folds of the envelope, was a single sheet of paper bearing a message that seemed to materialize out of thin air. The words were written in his own handwriting, words he had never put to paper. "If you're reading this, you have one last chance to change everything," it began, and the rest of the message was a series of cryptic clues. Places from his past, dates, names, and fragmented sentences that he couldn't quite decipher. Yet these fragments struck a chord within him, awakening emotions and memories he thought he had buried long ago. Over the next few days, the letter became an obsession. Salem found himself thinking about it constantly, unable to focus on his usual routine. The cryptic message echoed in his mind, its words seeping into his thoughts like the slow drip of a leaky faucet. Each night he reread the letter, searching for a clearer meaning, trying to understand its significance. The words were jumbled, the sentences incomplete, but there was a story hidden within, a story that he felt compelled to uncover. Then, as if triggered by an unseen force, Salem began to retrace the steps laid out in the letter. He started with the oldest clue, leading him to an abandoned cafe on the edge of town. It was a place he had frequented during his university days, a sanctuary where he had shared countless hours with a close friend. But their friendship had ended abruptly, leaving a wound of resentment and regret in its wake. Salem had never returned to the cafe, never revisited the memories that lingered there. But now, compelled by the letter's enigmatic words, he found himself standing once again before its worn doors. Stepping inside, he was met with the aroma of freshly brewed coffee, mingling with the scent of old wood and forgotten dreams. The interior was much the same as he remembered, filled with mismatched furniture and framed photographs of patrons long gone. But what truly caught his attention was a corner table, the same table where he and his friend used to meet. And on that table, tucked away as if waiting for him, was a faded photograph. It showed 2 young men, their faces bright with laughter, their eyes shining with dreams that had yet to be extinguished. Salem recognized himself in the picture, but the other man was a stranger to him, a ghost from a past he had tried so hard to forget. With trembling hands, Salem picked up the photo, examining every wrinkle, every crease, as if it held the secrets to the letter's cryptic message. As he turned it over, hoping to find a date or a name, something on the back caught his eye. It was a date that had been seared into his memory without his conscious knowledge. And then there was a name he hadn't heard in years. The realization hit him like a tidal wave. The letter wasn't just a random occurrence. It was a guide, a roadmap leading him back to his past, back to the roots of the pain and regret that had shadowed him for so long. And so he continued his journey, each clue from the letter propelling him deeper into the labyrinth of his past. He visited the old library where he had once studied with a girl he had loved, only to run from her when he felt the weight of his own fears. At every stop, he found echoes of his former self, remnants of a life he had built and broken, dreams he had chased and abandoned. The letter was forcing him to confront the consequences of his actions, the ripples of his decisions that had echoed through the years. Yet amidst the sadness and regret, there was a flicker of hope. With each passing day, Salem felt a burden lifting from his shoulders, a weight that had been pressing down on him for so long he had stopped noticing its presence. The act of revisiting these places, of acknowledging the ghosts of his past, was a cathartic experience. He was piecing together fragments of himself that he had lost, wounds he had left unattended, and regrets he had tried to outrun. As the final date approached, Salem found himself standing before a weathered building on a quiet street. The walls seemed to whisper stories of bygone eras, and the peeling paint hinted at faded dreams. In his hand, the letter fluttered gently in the breeze. Its words seared into his memory. The letter had led him here, but what awaited him inside remained a mystery. When the clock tower chimed 5 p.m., Salem took a deep breath, pushing open the door and stepping inside. Time seemed to stand still, the ticking of the clock the only sound in the hushed room. The air was thick with anticipation, heavy with the weight of the unknown. He scanned the room, his eyes searching for any sign, any indication of what he was supposed to do. Suddenly, he noticed a figure standing by the window, their back towards him. The person was young, their shoulders slumped, their head bowed, as if in contemplation. Salem approached cautiously, each step echoing in the silence. "Excuse me," he began hesitantly, his voice breaking the stillness. The figure turned, revealing a face that mirrored his own, a younger version of himself, his eyes, his features, even the small scar under his chin. Startled by this unexpected vision, Salem found himself frozen in place, unable to speak, unable to move. In that moment, he realized the true meaning of the letter. It wasn't just a guide to his past, it was a lifeline to his future. The younger version of himself was a reminder of the choices he had made, the paths he had taken, and the regrets he had left behind. It was a mirror reflecting his past actions, urging him to alter the course of his life. With a surge of determination, Salem found his voice. "I need your help," he said, reaching out to touch the younger man's shoulder. But as he reached out, the young man vanished, leaving Salem alone in the empty room. The clock tower chimed again, marking the passage of time, the ticking serving as a reminder of the urgency of the task before him. Left with no choice, Salem resolved to take matters into his own hands. He retraced his steps, revisiting the places and people from his past, seeking answers, seeking redemption. He mended broken relationships, confronted his fears, and made amends for the mistakes of his youth. He started writing, pouring his heart and soul into stories that resonated with the pain and beauty of human existence. Years passed, turning into decades, and as Salem grew older, he carried with him the wisdom of his journey. He learned that sometimes we must travel to the ends of our past to find the answers that lie within. We often need to look back to move forward, to heal the wounds of yesterday, to embrace the possibilities of tomorrow. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Salem sat in his favorite chair, surrounded by stacks of books and papers. He was content, at peace with himself. He had come full circle, completing the journey that began with a letter from his future self. The past was no longer a burden, but a guide, a teacher, a source of strength. He thought back to that fateful night when he received the letter that changed everything. It had been a message from his future, a plea for him to alter the course of his life. And he had listened, embarking on a quest that led him to confront his past, heal his wounds, and ultimately find redemption. Salem smiled, realizing that sometimes the most unexpected detours can lead us to our greatest discoveries. The letter, the journey, the scars, they were all part of his story, a story that had brought him to this moment of contentment. He understood now that our lives are shaped by the choices we make, the paths we follow, and the echoes of our past that we choose to confront. As the night deepened, Salem closed his eyes, letting the silence of the evening envelop him. He knew that the true adventure lay not in chasing external dreams, but in exploring the depths of his own being. The letter from his future had been a wake-up call, a reminder to seize the present and shape the future. And he had done just that. He had rewritten his story, not with words, but with actions, with courage, with hope.